The boy's name was Emile Fournier, and he was 12 when the world began to slip out from under its skin. In the quiet French village of Thann, the days once passed like slow rain over stone, measured, soft, never too loud. His mother stitched uniforms for the garrison, his father carved small wooden animals and left them on the windowsill, unfinished, a habit that made Emile think that adults always expected tomorrow. The war hadn't come yet, not really. There were rumors, of course, whispers in bakeries, postcards arriving slower, men in the village square reading newspapers with faces like winter bark. But for Emile, the world still smelled like warm bread, and the birds still gathered on the power lines like notes on a song. He delivered messages between farmhouses, boots squelching through fields, carrying milk, money, and recipes, and sometimes just the latest gossip in exchange for a boiled sweet. He was quick and quiet and light on his feet. His mother used to say that he was born in a hurry and hadn't stopped running since. The uniformed men would nod at him when he passed, sometimes ruffling his cap, sometimes pressing a few coins into his palm to take a letter to the girl in the next town. It was nothing back then, just errands, just a game, until the day the first body was dragged through the square. It was the town postman, face dark with blood, jacket torn, his satchel still strapped across his chest, letters soaked and shredded like petals in a storm. The soldiers didn't speak as they carried him, but Emile watched. He watched as silence took root in the cobblestones. He watched as his mother turned her face away, hand shaking while she stitched a red thread into a tunic. And he knew, deep in his ribs, that something in the world had cracked. That was the day they started calling him a courier. That was the day the errands became orders. It began with the small things. Letters no longer folded in careful script, but scribbled in fear, blood on the corners. The soldiers stopped smiling when they handed him envelopes. Now their hands trembled. Now their eyes flicked sideways when they heard the sky. And always, always, they said the same thing. Take this to her. Tell her I'm fine. The fronts shifted like waves. One day the Germans pushed forward. The next, the French reclaimed it. And somewhere in between, no. Man's land swallowed villages like Thanhol. The Fournier home was turned into a field post. His mother moved into the back room. His father never returned from the city. Emile did not ask. They gave him a badge, though not a real one, and called him Petit Corbeau, Little Raven, for how he came and went through the ruined forests with messages bound at his chest, like a black-winged secret. He slept in barns. He ate what the soldiers gave him, stale bread, soup that tasted like rust, and he ran across mud-churned fields, past horses screaming with broken legs, through smoke so thick it became a second skin. Sometimes the letters tore before he arrived. Sometimes the men who sent them were dead before he left. The first time he saw a man die, truly die, it was not like in the books. There was no noble whisper, no final words, just the soft sound of lungs giving way and eyes that would not close. Even as Emile pressed his small, shaking fingers to them, he did not cry, not then, but that night, with the sound of guns in the distance and frost creeping up his boots. He pulled a torn letter from his pocket. It was unreadable. Blood made the ink run like tears, and Emile, not knowing what else to do, rewrote it. I am safe, he wrote, slowly, childishly. The sun shines here. I miss you. I love you. He folded it neatly, slid it into the envelope. and delivered it the next morning to the widow who waited at the edge of the field with hands like bird bones. By 1916, the world had grown small and grey and endless. Trenches had become homes. Rats had become company. Time was no longer marked by clocks, but by shells. The long scream, the pause, and the earth breaking like brittle bread. Emil was 14 now, though no one could tell. His face had thinned, eyes grown wide and hollow. He no longer asked what was in the letters. He no longer needed to. They were all the same. Lies dipped in love. He knew the roots, knew which trees still stood, knew when to duck and when to run. He could hear the difference between a French mortar and a German one in his sleep. And sometimes he did, jerking awake with dirt in his mouth and the sound of screaming still echoing in his bones. They called him a ghost now, not just a raven. A boy who could slip through the cracks of war and come out the other side with the dead men's last words. But Emil knew he wasn't a ghost. Ghosts don't bleed. Ghosts don't feel their stomach twist when they see a child's body frozen in snow. Ghosts don't have nightmares where their mother walks toward them in the fog, arms outstretched, and vanishes just before she speaks. He saw her once, truly saw her, in a field hospital in Verdun, hair tucked beneath a nurse's cap, eyes dull but kind. She did not cry when she saw him, just touched his face, whispered his name like a prayer, and made him promise not to die. He did, but he knew it was a promise made in smoke. There came a day in late autumn when Emil carried a letter that broke something in him. It was from a corporal named Leon, barely 20, whose hands trembled so violently he could not hold a pen. So he dictated, word by word, whispered between sobs behind the wreckage of a half-burned carriage. Emil sat cross-legged on the ground, writing in thick, slow strokes. "Tell her I'm whole," the boy soldier said. "Tell her I still have both legs, that the lice haven't touched me, that the food is good, that I think of her when the sun comes up." But Leon had no legs. They'd been lost in the blast 2 days before. His bandages leaked. The rats circled. "Say I'm learning to play piano," he added with a hollow laugh. "Say I'll take her dancing in spring." Emil wrote it all down, nodded, folded it, pressed it to his chest. When Leon died later that night, no one noticed. Not really. There was no one left to mourn him except Emil, and Emil did not mourn loudly. But the letter he delivered it, not to a wife, not even a sweetheart, to a mother. A wrinkled woman with white hair and no teeth, who kissed the envelope and wept, who thanked the boy, who offered him a single apple from the bottom of her satchel, as though he had brought her son home that night. Emil sat beside a ruined wall and watched the apple rot in his hands. He didn't eat it. Couldn't he? Pressed it into the mud. And that was when he understood. It wasn't just the soldiers who lied to their families. It was him. He was the lie. Walking, breathing, carrying the last soft words of broken men and painting them in golden ink. By 1917, the war had eaten nearly everything. The land, the trees, the names of towns that no longer existed except in letters never delivered. And the boy, Emil, now 15, carried too many of them inside. The lies, the secrets, the ones he rewrote, and the ones he never dared to. He was passing through what they called the Bone Orchard, a field near Passchendaele, where the mud could swallow a man in seconds when he saw the pigeon fall. It was a carrier, grey and small, its wings stiff with blood. It dropped near his feet, twitching. a message tube still strapped to its leg. He knelt gently and unscrewed the cylinder. Inside, a note, short, coded. Emil wasn't meant to read such things, but he had seen codes before, had watched officers scribble them late at night under the glow of lamps. This one was different. It didn't speak of supply drops or troop shifts. It spoke of an ambush, a location, a name, the name of a village that still held civilians. Emil stared at the paper. He looked at the sky, then back at the bird. He could run it to the command tent. He could be praised, maybe even given a medal. But he knew what would happen. They would strike. They would bomb first, without warning, and the people in that village, women, children, old men, would die before they ever knew what came for them. Emil had carried hundreds of letters, but this was different. This was a choice. He tore the message in half, then in quarters, and let the pieces fall into the water beneath the bridge. That night, he didn't sleep, but he felt warm for the first time in weeks. The sun rose blood-dawned through the fog, and with it came the shouting. They'd found the pigeon, or what was left of it, found the empty tube, and someone had spoken. A man in the signals tent had seen Emil by the bridge. The pieces came. Together, they dragged him to the colonel's tent. He said nothing, stared straight ahead. He did not cry. He did not deny. What did the message say? The officer hissed. Emil shook his head once. You cost us an advantage. You disobeyed. You're just a boy. But that makes no difference now. And it was true. The village had not been bombed, but 3 scouts had died. Caught in the ambush, Ml was placed in the holding trench, mud to his ankles, surrounded by silence and judgment. A single soldier, an older man with tired eyes and a stitched French flag on his sleeve, came to sit beside him. Why did you do it? The man asked, not unkindly. And for the first time in months, Emil spoke freely. They were people, just like my mother, just like me. The soldiers stared at him a long time. Then he stood, and without another word, walked away. The next morning, there was no trial, no firing squad. But when Emil returned to his rounds, they no longer looked at him the same. The soldiers did not nod. The officers did not speak. He was a ghost again, not because he moved like one, but because now they saw right through him. The war ended not with a bang, but with a breath. In November 1918, the guns fell quiet for the first time in 4 years. The silence was so thick, so unnatural, that some soldiers wept just hearing their own footsteps. Emil was 16. He had no uniform, no rank, but he had lived through more than most. He walked back to Thann alone, through broken roads, past fields that would never grow anything again, past gravestones without names. And when he reached the place where his home had once stood, there was nothing left, just ash, and, improbably, 1 wooden horse, half buried in the rubble. He picked it up, turned it in his hands, and then, from his coat, he pulled the 1 letter he had never delivered. It was for his father, dated back to 1915. The ink faded, his handwriting smaller, rounder. Papa, I hope you are safe. I miss you. Mama still sings. When she sews, I am helping the soldiers now. I run messages. They say I'm brave. Please write back. He folded it once more, laid it gently beside the wooden horse, and walked away, not toward glory, not toward medals, but toward the quiet, the kind of quiet where no one lies, where the dead are remembered, and the living are allowed to begin again.